Hi folks, doing another Scotty Kilmer review. Let's get started. Motor Mind. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notifications.
In 1996, GM still made pretty good trucks. This is a 96 GMC.
In this video, Scotty Guesses once again diagnosing this vehicle. It has no proof, there's no testing, there's nothing. It's a very amateur job. And I've said this loads of times. I think Scotty is absolutely one of the worst mechanics on the YouTube. He doesn't know how to diagnose a vehicle. He doesn't actually fix anything properly. He's a very amateur, backyard, this kind of mechanic. He doesn't actually know what he's doing. He just pretends.
Sierra. As you can see inside, 293,000 miles on it. Almost 300,000 miles. As you can hear when you start it up, it's running like crap. And man, does it stink of gasoline. Black, rich. I can almost smell raw gas. Now it's Robin Hood, the 5.7 liter Vortex V8 engine. And yes, it's running like crap. What we want to hope is that it's not the stupid Vortex fuel injection system, because the only metal part in the fuel injection is the feed line coming in here and going back to the tank. Everything else inside here is made out of plastic. The fuel injectors are inside the plastic manifold.
It's actually not true. The injectors are actually made out of metal as well.
They have little plastic spider feeds that go to 8 injectors, 1 for each cylinder. In order to change those out, if you're paying a mechanic, you are going to spend $1,500, $2,000, because
it's completely untrue. Scotty's just scaremongering. It would not even cost close to $1,000 to have this replaced, not even in 1995. Scotty's also failed to check the spark plugs, the wires, the distributor cap, any of that. It could be easily one of those. It's probably more likely.
Because you can't just say, oh, maybe it's this one. You have to replace all the plastic fuel lines, all the O-rings, all the fuel injectors. It's a really complex system. They work fine until they break, then they cost a fortune to replace.
As you can see here, I found one on eBay for $189.95, and that should be absolutely fine. Because the older vehicle, there's a lot more of an aftermarket. You also find another one come up here. This comes with $240. Comes with more seals and stuff like that. Or you can go to a scrapyard, find a vehicle that had the TSB, which has the updated unit, which moves the injectors back further, and that should cost you maybe about $20, maybe $40 at most. And I did it on 98 Suburban myself. It's not hard. You just split the intake, which comes apart, and you can just replace it. It's not that big of a job.
Remember, this is a 96. It's just one of their earlier non-throttle body fuel injection system. It is port injection. Each cylinder has an injector, but it's kind of a wonky system, and when they break, they cost a fortune to fix. So let's check.
The fault actually is that the original injectors were too close to the intake ports, and actually have carbon build up on the end of the injector, and actually would hold the metal, there's a little ball inside, and actually would hold it open with the carbon. The new ones, you moved the injectors back, further back, and had a rubber tube, and actually stopped that. So that's where the TSB was all about.
Check the raw data and see what the heck's going on. Thank goodness this is a 96. If it was a 95, we get very little data, but this has a regular OBD port, so I can hook my regular scan tool to it. Now, when they're running this bad, you're gonna get a lot of code, so me, I go straight to live data.
Straight away, like an amateur, Scotty's completely ignoring any of the DTCs, which can give him a direction, and going to live data. Live data is good to help diagnose the vehicle, but looking at the DTCs gives you helps you get a direction.
Go down till we see anything that looks weird. And in this case, the airflow rate from the mass airflow sensor is 8 grams a second, and that's way off. So we're going to try a mass airflow sensor first, because that's the most obvious thing. And since it measures how much air goes in the engine to put how much fuel in, if it's messed up, it says it's getting all that air, it puts too much fuel, guess what? It's going to run rich, black like that, smell of fuel. It could be that simple. So shut up, get to work.
I don't know why he's going for the mass airflow in this. Like I said, he's just completely ignored any of the other DTCs in there, which actually could point to another fault, why it's showing that on live data. As I said, vehicle running rough, first thing you want to check is make sure your spark plugs and everything are fine. and that maybe your fuel filter and everything looks like it's correct. Check your air filter, but he's just gone straight for the mass airflow on a complete whim and a guess. No diagnostics, no testing, nothing. He's just simply guessing and throwing this a random parts of the vehicle, hoping it fixes it. He's done this lots of times. I've seen it in several of his videos, and then when it doesn't fix it, all he does is blame the vehicle and they say it's all the vehicle's fault. The vehicle's a piece of crap. When really it's just his lack of complete other diagnostics or any kind of process. He's also charged a customer $100 for that mass airflow sensor. I found one on eBay for $40.
Sensor measures how much air goes in. It's right here. It's very simple to change. Here's my personal advice. Buy a new one. Don't buy remanufactured ones. They often stink. This thing's brand new. It only costs $100. Looks exact. Goes down here. But before we do that, this whole system's fed through the air filter. So let's check the air filter. And voila. It's so dirty. Put it up to the sun. You can't even see inside.
As you can see here, it also needs an air filter. As I also said, he hasn't checked any of the spark plugs, the wires, or the distributor cap. Those are also very common and probably more likely the cause of the vehicle running rough. He's just gone straight to a mass airflow for absolutely no reason whatsoever and no testing whatsoever. And he's assumed an injector fault, and there might not be.
You should be able to see the sun shining through it. You can't. So we need an air filter too. Now here's a brand new one. Check the difference. You can definitely see the sun inside now. So we'll put this back in. Goes on the end here. Notice how it fits in. You want it nice and tight. And the top slides on. Got notches. And it clamps them. Now you want to take it for a drive because it's got to kind of clear things out. The computer's going to have to set things up while we drive around. It's got to get used to the new part. Now,
or you could just clear it with that fancy scan tool is always banging on about, and then drive it and see if any DTCs come up. Resetting the codes also resets all the live data and all the parameters and stuff, so you can start all over again.
An old truck with almost 300,000 miles on it, and it's still got the original engine and tranny. Realize both are getting to the end of their life.
Actually, the GMC 5.7 liter 350 V8 is actually a very well-built engine, and I've seen go well over 500,000 miles without problem. Now, the 4L60 gearbox transmission, yeah, that's a bit of a weak point. If it has a 4L80, that was actually much better. They are interchangeable. If you have the 4L60, you can actually put a 4L80 in it.
But as you can see, it's already idling quite a bit.
I'm not sure what he's saying about it being idling smoother. For one, he's already took it up for test drive, and two, nobody can see anything there. You can see how the vehicle is idling, the way he's shaking the camera around. I don't think this vehicle is actually running any different. Also in the video, you can see the check engine light is still on, so it's actually still flagging the code.
We're running our little test road here, and yeah, it's lost a lot of its horsepower. There's no arguing that. Cruise is okay, but when you floor it, it's lost a lot of its horsepower. That's the Vortec fuel injection systems, those plastic injectors and everything. They got 300,000 miles on them. They're just not going to work.
He's still assuming it's got an injector fault, and he still hasn't checked the ignition system whatsoever. Like I said, more likely that's what it is. It would cause all the symptoms he's having. But once I said, he's just ignored it once again.
We are getting it to go up higher in RPMs now, and it's not backfiring.
More than likely, why it's running better is because he's putting an air filter in it. It's not backfiring because now it's actually getting more air into the system, vehicle, and the engine's actually able to breathe. Nothing to do with the $100 mass airflow sensors.
Fuel injection system, here's a good way to check it. Now here's a trick to check these Vortec fuel injectors. They're inside the engine, you can't check.
As you can hear, the engine is still running quite rough. I don't think he's actually fixed anything, hasn't solved the fault. More likely, I'd be checking the ignition system, plugs, wires. It's more likely to be a fault. Maybe the injectors, but I would be checking that first. Start with the simple stuff instead of assuming it needs to have the intake split and all the injectors replaced. Basically, it's more money than this old truck is worth if you... Not really. I priced it out to say $200 for the injectors for the spiders, plus maybe to say 2 hours labor. So you're looking at maybe $400 or $500 at the most. Maybe less, depends on your mechanic. Or like you could just buy the injector spider kit yourself, and if you're handy, do it yourself. It's not that hard. You can split the intake and it's all in there. It's quite easy. But before doing that, I'd be checking, making sure your spark plug wires are fine, making sure your spark plugs are in good shape, make sure they're gapped correctly before I start going after injectors.
If you want to do it yourself, it's doable. It's just going to cost you a lot for the parts. The fuel pressure regulator's plastic, the lines are plastic, the injectors are plastic, the gaskets are made out of rubberized material. You got to buy all that stuff and replace it all on this vehicle.
The fuel pressure regulator is actually built into the spider injector unit. It all comes together. It's just one complete unit. It's not serviceable. It's not that expensive as I was showing you, and it's actually quite not that hard of a job.
V8. It ran okay for almost 300,000, but now you got to decide. Want to put a bunch of money in it? Do I want to junk it? Or do I want to drive it just running poor like this? Because, I mean, I had it going 60 miles an hour in second.
Why is he driving the vehicle in second gear, doing 60 miles an hour in an old truck that's got 330-some thousand miles on it? That's very unprofessional. That's just bagging on its customer's vehicle, looking to have something happen.
Second gear, it still runs. Once you get to a certain speed, it's okay. It's taking off that's hard, because when you get too much gas, they sputter on takeoff. I know it sounds weird, but the faster you go, generally, the leaner you want the mixture.
That's incorrect. As you go faster, you have more air going into the engine. You want to have more fuel. You want it to actually richen up to maintain the stoichiometric ratio of 14:1, 14.1 to 1 actually. And so you want it to richen up. So you want more fuel as more air goes in to maintain a ratio. If it leans out, you're going to start burning things up.
If it's really rich, it's okay on an ice cold motor, but once it's warmed up, if it's really rich, it'll have a tendency of stalling, and when you try to take off, it'll burble like this thing does. It's better than it was because we fixed part of it, but it really is going to need all that spider injection system. It's probably not worth it. All right, Toyota just stated that their 2022 Toyota Tundra's base engine is going to beat their current V8, and they said the performance model will blow you away. I don't think it'll blow me away. I just think it blows. They're getting rid of their V8 engines. They last forever, 600, 700,000, a million miles, and replaced them with twin turbo V6s. They'll never last as long.
Now you know how Scotty hates anything that's turbocharged. Any vehicle that's designed to be turbocharged is maintained correctly and driven properly and not driven like a race car will last just as fine. I'm sure Toyota's done all their R&D and they know what they're doing. They're known to have reliable vehicles.
Ever. You put that extra pressure. Look at Ford. Their V6 twin turbos, they're breaking down like no tomorrow. They do not last as long. Extra pressure turbo.
Scotty says turbos have extra pressure, but actually they have lower compression ratios than naturally aspirated engines to compensate for having the bigger air fuel charge going into the cylinders. They also have designed reinforced connecting rods, pistons, and other things. The vehicles are designed to be turbocharged.
Two of them. Extra pressure GDI injection. Super 1,000 PSI more instead of 45 PSI. Everything's going to wear out faster, and Toyota makes great vehicles, but I think it's a mistake. People buy those big trucks because they want something's going to last forever. They expect bad gas mileage, and they won't get good gas mileage because they're heavy. They can give the rating. Half the time the rating is a lie. I drove some Toyotas that were new and they were rated at 34 miles a gallon on a highway, and
Every single manufacturer's MPG ratings are always over-exaggerated. They're done in a lab, usually on a rolling road. The professional driver who knows how to drive the vehicles, and sometimes even the accessory belts are taken off and the weight's taken out to get those MPG ratings. They're never real world. And
I got like 24, and I just drove with cruise control on, going the speed limit. So you can't believe any of that stuff. It's a bunch of crap. But they all buy into this. Oh, well, the EPA ratings, so that's better for us. Blah, blah, blah. They should have stuck with the V8s. This twin turbo V6, they're fast. Yeah, you can make them go real fast. It's got 2 turbos on it. But it's going to, guess what? Wear out real fast, too. It won't last as long. It just can't. There's too much pressure. Caller for life says, Scotty, thanks for the vids. I have an 09 Camry 4-cylinder automatic. How do I check to see if my oil pan needs to be replaced? The mechanic said I need to replace it. It isn't.
On this one here, if the saying needs replacing, most likely they live in the rust belt and you get corrosion. It's either on the metal, on the steel, or on the aluminum, and it actually starts going porous. I've seen this loads of times, and most likely for what the price, which is about $500 and some, is most likely the upper oil pan. The oil pan in these vehicles are actually split lower and upper. Lower is dead cheap and easy. The upper is a lot more intense. That's probably why it's so much. But yes, they do start to go porous, and you can tell. and if it's from corrosion, and it will need replacing, or it will start leaking. Oh yeah, and there's no way in God's green earth you can do them in 10 minutes. Impossible, can't be done.
Leaking and all, but he says it's getting to the point where it's going to leak, and he wanted $582. All right, find another mechanic. He's a crook. Generally, you never have to replace oil pans. They're just a gasket. They're bolted on. They just sit there. They do nothing. As long as it's not leaking, leave it alone. That's a bunch of crap. He's trying to sell you stuff that you don't need. They don't wear out. Don't waste your money on something like that, and find another mechanic. If he's a crook, he wants to do that and charge you all that money. I could change an oil pan on one of those things in 10 minutes. Go somewhere.
As I said, bullcrap is probably starting to corrode, starting to go porous, and no way can you do it in 10 minutes. That's definitely the upper oil pan. So Scotty's just talking rubbish.
Where else? Find another mechanic. Lil Ray Rob says, I got a 2021 Hyundai Elantra. The warranty protects the powertrain up to 100,000 miles. Should I change my tranny fluid at 60 like a normal, or wait for 100,000 miles? Change it at 60. You don't want to chance it if you're planning on keeping that vehicle. It's 2021, so it's new. Let's say if you're leasing it, don't do anything. Who cares? You don't care. But if you own it, yes, change it every 60. Watch my videos on how to do it. It's not.
Actually, yes. I would be doing it at 60,000 miles, but you can't do it on the driveway yourself. They don't have dipsticks. They don't have drain plugs. You need a special machine to be able to change transmission fluid in the Hyundais. I worked a Hyundai, and those for a fact. Take it to a dealership or take it to a mechanic shop and have them do it. Scotty's video would be completely, utterly useless for this. Even if you were trying to do it on when they could do it, I've seen his videos. It's going to be all of 3 minutes and give you such no information, so no.
Not hard to do. You can easily do it yourself. You don't need to pay the dealer, even though you got that 100,000 mile warranty. Try to get anything fixed under it. Half the time they wouldn't fix it. They'd blame it on the owner. They say, oh, there's nothing wrong. Oh, that's normal. The warranties generally aren't worth the pay.
Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel.